Thank you, Stephen. Hi, everyone. My name is Colleen Withers. I'm a director here in the Career Center. I run the career development team. Those are basically the team staff here at the Career Center that meet with your students one-on-one, do workshops and things like that for your students. And just excited to be here. I also wanted to mention that I have two of my own children in college, so I really understand where all of you are coming from. And one of the reasons, sort of the impetus for this webinar was because I do work with my own children and my children's friends, as well as Santa Clara students. I thought it might be helpful for other parents to sort of have the lens that I have. So wanted to give you all a few tidbits, at least today, on some of the things that I think you could provide some help with if your students ask. So learning a little bit about what the Career Center advises so that you have some knowledge on your tool belt as well. Also, some of the things that are public on our website and things like that so that you can also view those things as well. I do have a couple polls. Um, Stephen, if you could go ahead and launch those, that would be great. So, trying to get a lay of the land about who's in the room. First off, have you ever previously attended a Career Center resources presentation? So, I don't want to reiterate other things that we've done. We do family weekend presentations, which we'll do again this year in February. We did for the first time do sessions during orientation for the new first year students this past summer. And I think there's also some recorded webinars out there as well. So, okay, great. So we were at about a little bit split, mostly no. Yeah, most people know. 44% said yes. So maybe half and half have a little bit of understanding of what we do. Awesome. Thank you for that. And then the second question. Perfect. Has your child attended a Career Center event or had a one-on-one appointment with our staff? And if you're not sure, that's fine too. Well, I know a lot of times we don't know what our students are doing on campus. So totally understand where you're coming from that perspective as well. Um, but would first of all encourage your student if they haven't already interacted with us to please do so because we do one-on-one appointments, Zoom and in person. We're open even when the students are not on campus. So after finals, we're open spring break week. We're open all summer. So we are here for them. And then obviously Career Center events are a great way to engage with us. Perfect. And I think, do you want to just share those results real quick with everyone, Stephen?
Yes, give me 1 second.
Sure.
I think that's being shared. Should be.
Yeah, I think so. Awesome. Well, I'll go ahead and dive in then. I think we can stop the sharing. And I will also share these slides with Stephen. So we can go ahead and have you take a look at those as well. So the polls we just did, I'm going to do a little bit of overview on the job market trends, some discussion around career discernment, some of my own favorite resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn tips, uh, some tips as well on networking conversations for your students, and then how to connect with us. Um, I am giving you like tiny little snippets of information, so I'm just trying to focus on the things that I think would be most impactful that maybe your students are already asking you or could ask, particularly over the holidays when they're home. But I did just see this job market trend information, and I thought this would be super helpful because I know there's a lot of news about AI and is AI replacing entry-level jobs? So in our industry within higher education, particularly around the career related career centers, career services, the organization is called NACE, and they do a lot of research in this space. And the president recently put out, his name is Sean, recently put out some information for the job outlook for 2026. And according to their research, 61% of employers have not even discussed replacing entry-level jobs with AI. 25% were unsure, and 14% are having discussions about it. So only 14% right now are talking about having AI replace entry-level jobs. So I thought that was promising. And as well, only 10.5% of entry-level jobs include AI in the job description. His takeaway from that was while some jobs have been created and other jobs have sort of evolved with AI, employers are reporting that the overall impact of AI on early career roles remains limited. And I would say from experience here within the Career Center, we are definitely seeing some shifting roles. So it's not replacing, but new roles like a generative AI analyst has been created. And obviously, a few years ago, that job title did not exist. Just like, 10 years ago when the social media marketing analyst popped up with the influx of social media. So things ebb and flow, but I thought that this research was worth mentioning for this conversation. So next I want to talk about your students, and I know we've got a real wide variety of parents on the call with different backgrounds and students at different phases. So the first thing that I wanted to do was talk about some of our resources around self-awareness. There were some of you that put in questions ahead of time that talked about what if my student is undeclared? What if my student isn't sure if they're in the major they want to be in? And that's when we really point them to these discernment self-awareness sites. And this is publicly available to you. So if you, and again, once you get these slides, you can click on this is our website here, the Santa Clara Career Center. And you can, as right now, you can Google this if you'd like as well. The two things that I recommend students do is Focus 2 being the first thing. And Focus 2 is a classic career assessment. Probably a lot of you took these types of things when you were at school, or maybe since then. And it really focuses on your work interest, your values, your personality assessment, and then it combines all of these together so that you can link directly to a major and directly to a job title. So it actually spits out this portfolio for you. And what I'm going to do is just show you real quick. So if your student is still in that discernment phase, this would be a great thing to do over the holidays. And if they are open to showing you the results, I always think that's a great way to start an entertaining conversation about what even is that job title, how is it related to the major. So as you can see on my screen here, these are the different assessments that the student would complete, and then they would go to this page here, combine the results, and come up with that list, like I mentioned, that ties directly to the job titles and the majors. It's a great place to start if they haven't, if they really just don't know. So that would be a place to start. And then secondly, this what can I do with my major is actually just a website where you click through, and again, that's on the same page here, where you click through different job titles, different industry areas, and it will also really help your student take a look at it. But again, this is public. This is all on our website. So if you want to do some searching yourself for, oh, what do history majors end up doing? This is a great place, just a general resource to any university student. Highly recommend that you start there. Now, for those of you whose students are a little bit further along and are ready to work on their resume, these are some quick ideas that I have for everyone because I know what ends up happening is students come to us maybe with a high school resume, or students come to us without a resume at all, which is fine as well. But what we really want to focus on is the things that they're doing now at college. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a job. And I feel like that's where a lot of students get hung up. I have no work experience. I have nothing that an employer wants. There's a lot of imposter syndrome that goes on with our students. And I've seen that nationwide, so it's not just here. But sometimes thinking about the experience that they have more broadly can be helpful. So this is also a great conversation if you're doing some brainstorming for, helping a student with a resume, or if you also have another child in high school and you're working on their resume, highly recommend also thinking about volunteer experience that they have, if they're part of a club or an organization or athletics. We're hearing from employers that the two top skills they're looking for are communication skills and critical thinking skills. So, thinking about these experience that they have had, and how are they using their communication skills, their organizational skills, critical thinking skills, and trying to craft a bullet that was really helpful and sort of explains those experiences. We do still highly recommend a one-page version of the resume. Um, and we do also recommend that they put in relevant coursework. So that means actually listing out the title of the class that they're taking. A lot of times, employers who are looking to hire Santa Clara students are really familiar with the coursework that our students take. And so listing out the classes that they've taken can be really helpful. The other thing that's really common is the project section. This also is sometimes new for students, and I feel like I reiterate it almost in every resume appointment that I have. So the project section, it can be an academic project or it could be a project that they do from like outside of class. And again, it's focusing on a real experience. And what I mean by that is, say they did some analysis or some research for a project, and they used Excel. So they might not have a work or internship experience using that, but they've done an academic project using that skill. So those are great ways to showcase what they're learning and what they could do for a company without having an internship or something like that having posted on there. So a couple tidbits there. As well, when we're crafting the bullets, really thinking about having a result at the end of every bullet and making that result quantifiable as possible. I feel like this has been the way for generations, but just to reiterate, this is still, in fact, true. So thinking about the context or the action that the student took while they were at that job, ideally, mentioning customer service, things like that, and then having the outcome or the result. So, what happened because of what you did? A lot of times, what happens with students when we're looking at resumes is that they're focused on like tasks, which is a great place to start. But then, what was the result of the task that they did? Um, and I will mention, and I'll point this out after I'm done with the cover letter piece. We do have some templates that are publicly available on on our website. So a great spot to look as well. Um, Moving to cover letters. So cover letters are often optional, but we have heard from employers that if they provide an opportunity for a student to submit a cover letter, that they should definitely do it, because there are some organizations that will weed students out for not even submitting one, which I know kind of seems frustrating and annoying to students because it's a lot of work, and I do get it, but it can be the differentiator between you and another person. What I do tell students is to not overthink it. There are three main paragraphs in a cover letter. Um, and a lot of times, if you're applying to very similar roles, that about you section, so that fit section, doesn't really need to change much because you're trying to highlight some skills. You're trying to add a little personality to what they're going to find on their resume. And the only thing that really needs to change in the cover letter is the intent section. So if students are thinking about applying to things over the holidays, you might be able to help them a little bit with taking a look at the company websites, taking a look at what's happening in the news for certain companies. So that would be that in that about the company piece of the cover letter. So, just a couple highlights there for you. I know a lot of students will probably be working on applications over the holidays, so I thought this would be helpful. And the third thing that I highly recommend, sort of, these are all application materials, but getting up and running over the holidays would be a LinkedIn. So, if your student doesn't already have LinkedIn, or they just have like a shell of a LinkedIn, definitely recommend they work on that. If the by the end of the holiday season, if they could have a basic resume, a basic cover, and a LinkedIn profile up and running, I mean, that would be amazing. They'd be really ready for, any internship things that are popping up in the winter quarter. Wanted to highlight a couple differences. I'm sure a lot of you have LinkedIn profiles. I would encourage you all to please connect with me. I do post a lot on LinkedIn, internships and jobs and things like that that I see, to repost and things like that. So definitely would recommend and happy to engage with all of you there as well. But the main sort of like key parts to LinkedIn, when I also feel like sometimes students get hung up and stuck with is I don't know what to put where, or I don't know, do I really have to fill that out, or how important is it? LinkedIn is really important to hiring managers and recruiters. A lot of hiring managers and recruiters actually use LinkedIn to find students to hire. There's a whole recruiting package called a LinkedIn Recruiter where they can type in keywords and students sort of pop up on a list for them. So the more they can fill out, the better. But a few kind of highlights for them, definitely having a headshot. And it doesn't need to be super professionally done. It could be just you taking a picture of them standing, up against, professionally dressed up against a white wall, as long as it frames their face, that's fine. The headline, which is that piece like right under their photo, is great to have some basic information. And then that about section is very similar to the cover letter. So that about section really talks about a little personality, like why they're interested in the kind of work they're interested in, maybe a class that they took that really got them motivated. Um, and then just some basic information on the experience section, which can be exactly the same as the resume. It doesn't need to be totally different. So that is a little bit easier for students. They want to just cut and paste that, that's fine. Same sort of stuff on the resume and the LinkedIn when it comes to like relevant coursework or projects. Thinking about anything like that would be perfect. And I'll show you real quick before I move on where all of this information is. And I know I'm going really quickly because I've got a whole lot of stuff to cover, but if you go, and again, you can just Google us, the Career Center, you go to this job prep toolkit here, and you will see all of our information, resources. We have so many things. But particularly within this job templates spot, you'll see sample resumes and resume templates. So we have a whole bunch of different information when it comes to what students majors. So we've got like a communications version. And then from there, if you keep scrolling down, we've got the sample cover letters. We have information on the bullets themselves. So the structure that I was talking about before, which having a result, this document is very large, but really very helpful. And again, this is, action verbs, all this kind of stuff. This is all publicly available. I highly recommend, feel free to cut and paste and use it with any and all of the students that you come across. Um, so that is the section for that. Job scan too, just to highlight that, that is a ATS tool. So for those of you who've heard of an ATS before, that's an applicant tracking system. That is what 95% of employers use. Basically, it's kind of what collects the resumes and then scans for keywords. JobScan is a tool that we have that we provide to students free where they can upload a job description, upload their resume, and it will help them understand some of the keywords that are missing. And that can make the difference between getting in the top 10 of that search or not, right? So matching some of those keywords to the experience that they have. And sometimes it's soft skills. Sometimes it's things like customer service versus client service. So sometimes it's really simple things that can be tweaked on the resume. And that's why we always recommend having like one master resume that can be as long as they want, but then for specific jobs, pulling over the information that's the most impactful for the job that they're looking for. So, couple resources there just to keep in mind. So if your student ha already has done all of this, so they're ahead of the game, they already know the type of job that they want, they've already got a resume, the cover letter, they already have a LinkedIn. It looked like about 30% of your students have already met with us, so they might already have all this application stuff ready. I wanted to highlight what they can do next. Also, a great opportunity to do these things over the holidays. Again, a lot of it's going to be about meeting your student where they are. Um, we've got two great tools that we highly recommend. One is called Bronco Exchange. So if you haven't heard of Bronco Exchange, it is where alumni and friends of the university join the platform to mentor students. So your student will go on there, and again, everything goes back to this job prep toolkit page. Um, Bronco Exchange is here, and I'll give you a quick peek into what it looks like. So you go onto the page and you can join the community. And as parents, we also welcome you to join the community as well. They can search by career paths. So if they've already done their focus two or they already have an idea of what they want to do, they can come in here and take a look. So I'll just do one quick for everyone. So say your student is interested in marketing, they want to move into becoming a marketing specialist or something like that. It gives some basic information. And then from there, it actually links to 9 or 10 people who do this kind of work. And these are all people who have put their information into Bronco Exchange to meet with students. So I do recommend that this is a great way to make a connection with a Santa Clara alum, and they can directly just message them right here from the platform. Every time I talk to students, I recommend that they reach out to 10 people on Bronco Exchange. So if, like I said before, if your student has done a lot of the resume stuff, they've done all this stuff, and they're applying online to jobs and they're not hearing back. The second step that needs to happen is the networking piece. Networking is so important. And this is a great and easy way to start. Now, I do recommend that they reach out to 10 people because we're seeing our return at about 30 to 40%, which basically means 3 or 4 alums are going to get back to the student. And then from there, they're going to be able to set up 1 to 2 networking conversations. That's kind of like what we're seeing the response rate here on Bronco Exchange. So it's a great way to kick things off. And I tell students, every time you set up one of those conversations, this should open the door to multiple people. So not only are you meeting, say, here with Emily, but then you're asking Emily, who else in your network do you know that I could speak to? And it's a great way to just sort of keep the conversation going. The other tool that we highly recommend is on LinkedIn. And if you aren't familiar, I'll go ahead and show you that. This is a more general way to see like where Santa Clara students end up. What are they doing? What are they up to? Depending on their major. So within LinkedIn, you can either start immediately at the company page or you could start at the Santa Clara page. So some of you who maybe saw one of our orientation sessions, we did a demo of this for that as well. So I'm sorry if this is redundant for you, but we just think it's such a great tool. So you go to the university page and then you go to the alumni tab here, and you can actually scroll through and see what do people who graduated from Santa Clara, where do they go off to do? So one of the things that's easy is to start with their major. So let's figure out, okay, a history major, what are the history majors done? You can take a look by where they live, where they work, or like what industry they're in, what they're skilled at. and then the people come up down here. So then you can go ahead, the students can go ahead and connect, follow up with individuals. The return response rate is lower on LinkedIn, so I do recommend that you reach out to as many people as possible on LinkedIn. It's not going to be the same return as Bronco Exchange, but obviously there's so many people here on LinkedIn that it's also a great alternative resource. One other quick slide I have on this, and again, I apologize that I'm going so quickly, but there's so much to say. The reaching out and having that career conversation, I know in and of itself can be a challenge. So I do have this quick slide of what the students should be saying. And really, they're just looking to have an informational conversation. So this messaging would work for either Bronco Exchange or LinkedIn. Um, if they're doing just a cold message, then making sure that there's some connection between the two of you. So I'm a current Santa Clara student studying history. I saw that you were a history major and you're an alum. So you're making that connection right off the bat. You're more likely to get a response that way. Um, and then other than that, it's really just encouraging your student to ask questions. A lot of times the students will come in and they will say, what in the world would I say to someone? I don't even know where to start. And it's really just focusing on asking the questions about that person's career because most people like to give back. If they're alums, they like to give back to current students and they love to talk about their own career journey. So asking them a lot about, how did you get that first job? How did you get from that first job to that second job? And then it looks like you pivoted into this. How did that happen? So some of those sort of feedback and encouragement, I think, from parents could be helpful if the student is struggling with this over the holidays. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So, other ideas of things to do in preparation for the winter quarter. So, we do have a couple things that require some setup ahead of time, I guess would be the best way to look at it. So hopefully you're all familiar with Handshake or your student is familiar with Handshake. Most of the students have downloaded the app and were asked to do that at orientation. Within Handshake, that is where students post jobs. And they also, I'm sorry, where employers post jobs, students have a profile and where students can look for jobs. And also, that's where all of our events are. So that's where you schedule appointments with us. That's where you do attendance and things like that for us. Um, so Handshake is a great place to look. But one of the things that I really recommend students do, and I'll give you a sneak peek because I also realized as a parent of college students that you don't know what Handshake looks like for them unless you're looking over their shoulder. So I'm going to give you a sneak peek as to what it looks like here. So this is a student version of Handshake, and you can see there's a lot of different options here. They can see all the different events that we have. They can also search for jobs. And because some jobs aren't posted yet, I highly recommend that students set up job alerts within Handshake and within LinkedIn. And the reason for this is that jobs pop up at all different times, depending on your major, depending on what you're looking for, and then sometimes just depending on the company. So a lot of the finance and accounting jobs have already been posted, have already closed. Will more jobs pop up? Definitely, yes, because there's just-in-time hiring, there's smaller companies, mid-sized companies that will still post jobs January, February, March, April. So setting up a job alert here within Handshake will notify the student when something pops up because it's crucial to apply within the first few days of the job being posted. And the only way you're going to know that it's posted is if you have a job alert. So through these filters in the top here, they can pick the kind of job that they're looking for, location, etc., and then have those jobs be immediately sent to them. Um, the one other thing I want to say quickly, which is a little bit of a mind shift for students, is that a lot of these have deadlines, right? So apply by a certain date. And contrary to what their normal life, which is like a deadline for getting into college, a deadline for a homework assignment. A lot of students think that they just need to apply by that date. That is not correct. They need to apply as soon as possible, as soon as they've seen the job posted. That will really increase their chances of getting a call back. If you wait until the very end or the close, a lot of times they're already interviewing, they're already looking at candidates, and it's highly unlikely that you're going to get a call back. So quick look there at what Handshake looks like. For the appointments, how to schedule that. That's through this Career Center button here. So you see this here on the left. And then they click appointments and then they go through scheduling appointment and then they can see all of our different calendars. We do have different specialties. So I do appointments for any and all students. So welcome for your students to schedule an appointment with me. But otherwise, they can also do a specific appointment. So we have a career coach who focuses on the business students. We have a career coach who focuses on, and you can actually see if you were in here to schedule a specific appointment, here they all are. So Noelle Kreidler would be the business student. Vanya Tong would be the STEM students. Shauna Strauss would be the arts, humanities, and social science students. This would be me. Then we also have some grad interns who do resume reviews and things like that. So that's the easiest way to set up meetings with us. And again, like I mentioned, we are available pretty much up until December 19th for this 2025, and then we'll open up in January again. We're available in person, on Zoom, all sorts of opportunities for students to pop in. A couple other things I wanted to mention really quickly here on what to do over the holidays. And I don't by any means assume that your student is going to do all of these things, but just kind of wanted to highlight a few different buckets depending on where your student is at this point in time. So a couple other things that they can do is one that I love is called Forage. And this is a free job simulation site. So they can go in here and pick a interest of their career, any type of career. So say that they are interested in consulting. They go ahead and they search by consulting, and all of these projects come up, and these are legitimate projects that these companies have established. They're all virtual. It can take anywhere from, 1 to 2 hours for a BCG thing to 4 to 5 hours for a PwC thing. And they're self-paced. So you're not actually interacting with the company, but the company has put this project together. And once you finish the project, you can add it to your LinkedIn. So, and you can also add it to your resume. But we do recommend that you take the time to do it, especially if you're exploring different types of careers, because maybe you're thinking strategy consulting, but then when you do this, 1 to 2 hour simulation, you're like, okay, yeah, no, that's really not what I want to do. Maybe I want to do cybersecurity consulting. So it's a really unique opportunity to kind of try out the work, in conjunction, obviously, with, trying to reach out to alums and chat with them about what it's like on a day-to-day basis to do this kind of work. It gives you a little bit more of a frame of reference too. So that's that. And then I have one last thing on this slide, and that's our job board directory. So that's also on the job prep toolkit, same spot. A lot of different specific job sites. These are really more if you're looking for something niche. Where Handshake or LinkedIn is not giving you a great return. It's really nice for students to be able to look by major at certain things. A lot of times, there's a lot of different opportunities, but you can look at these and check it out. There's also a few by major, and then there's also a few here by type. So if your student is really interested in, say, working for a nonprofit, I really like this idealist.org. They show a lot of positions there. Maybe if your student is interested in working at a university, you could take a look at higher ed jobs. That's a great site. So there's a lot of different sort of niche sh sites on here as well. And again, this is publicly available, so feel free to take a look yourself. Okay. One last thing I wanted to share is the career guides. And these are on our website, again, publicly available. Um, and they really can help figure out what students should be doing at certain spots. So within our website, and that was a QR code, and obviously you'll get all these slides, so that will be easy. But again, you go to this job prep toolkit, you go to career guides. And it will show you different things depending on where your student is. If they're a first year, sophomore, junior, graduate student, transfer student. And then there's a guide here specifically for parents of current students. So this links to a lot of the information that I've already given you, but also just, wanted to showcase that it's all here in one place in case you lose track of the slides. You can always come back to the career guides. And the nice thing here as well, this does link to Handshake and some of the positions that are popping up. And it also links to our calendar. So our calendar is where you'll be able to see events as they pop up on the public side. The students will be able to see all of our events in Handshake. We are currently populating things for the winter quarter. So you'll see more of that stuff popping up as over the next couple of weeks. We're getting all prepped for the next quarter. So things will pop up in Handshake that the students can see, and then things will pop up on our calendar as well for all of you to see. So highly recommend these career guides if you want to look back at the different things to look at. And I think also just trying to encourage your student to think creatively and holistically about their own experience. I talked about this a little bit on their resume, but also when they're just introducing themselves, thinking about their strengths, their qualities, what they enjoy doing. A lot of times that, helping them think through these types of things will help these conversations that they have with alums, with hiring managers, with the recruiters. It helps them really articulate what they're interested in and what they're looking to do. I've got a couple more slides and then we'll get to the questions. I see we've got a number of them, so I will get to that in a minute. Wanted to let you know where we are. So we are right outside of Benson in case your student wants to come by in person. We are on side of, it's sort of the back side of Benson across from Kenna Hall. There's a fountain out here. We can also meet students on Zoom, so that's a possibility. And one thing I wanted to highlight was on-campus jobs. So a lot of the questions I got ahead of time were about on-campus jobs. So the on-campus jobs are on Workday. So that's a different tile in their students' dashboard. Um, we can help the students get their resume ready, a cover letter if it's needed, their elevator pitch, something like that. Prepare for the interview for sure, but we don't actually manage the on-campus jobs themselves, and those are not typically in Handshake. So a good differentiator there, because I know that question did come up. I do recommend that students apply to on-campus jobs as soon as they see them pop up, just like with jobs in industry. They do fill up pretty quickly. You'll see an uptick again, probably March, April timeframe in the on-campus jobs. A lot of departments on campus do hire for on-campus jobs that would start in the fall, but they hire in March or April. So that's a great time to have your student take a look if they're really looking for an on-campus job for next year. And then as the summer rolls on, more jobs will get posted. But definitely before the start of the school year, August, September, more jobs will get posted. Once you get to the time, say like November, or even maybe October, a lot of the jobs have been filled. And even if they don't see a job, they can always go to the department. and go in person and just represent their interest. Let the department know that they're interested in case another position pops up. Going in person, handing over the resume is always an option as well. And sometimes that can be helpful. All on-campus jobs must be posted in Workday. And that's where all the federal work study jobs are posted as well. So everything is there in their Workday system. And like I said, we in the Career Center here are happy to help them get their resume ready for it, get a cover letter ready for it if they need it, help them do mock interviews. Mock interviews are actually one of my very favorite things to do because I used to be a recruiter, so I understand. How it struggle it is for students to sometimes articulate answers to questions in the moment. So I personally love to practice those with students. But that's where we are, and there is a link in here to schedule appointments as well if your student's having any issue with Handshake. One more thing on-campus internships or opportunities, fellowships. There are a lot of fellowships and things like that on campus. So these are things to keep an eye out. This is a page from our website as well. But there's a lot of fellowships and things across campus that pop up. So I do recommend requesting that the student look at that if that's something of interest to them, because there's a lot of really cool opportunities and fellowships and things like that on campus. Also wanted to give a plug to our advising team, pre-health and pre-law advising. So if your student is interested in going to law school, med school, dental school, things like that, these departments are awesome. They really do a great job of crafting information and opportunities to help the students with different opportunities. So maybe like shadowing, things like that. Other sort of research opportunities, things like that. I would definitely recommend that if your student is interested in that sort of line of work, to plug in with the pre-health and pre-law advising. A lot of these, both of these departments, I think, as well, offer peer-to-peer meetings, and those are great as well to get a peer perspective. Another quick plug for the stuff that I know is coming up in winter so far. Like I mentioned, these things will be up in Handshake and will be on our calendar definitely by the end of December. One highlight is the Winter Internship Fair. That's going to be on February 3rd on campus from 3 to 6 p.m. So that's going to be all majors and disciplines, and registration for that I think will open up probably early January. And then all these other events are coming up as well. So we've got workshops that are for students to help, with their networking, resume, interviewing. And then we also have these smaller events called meetups, which are kind of like mini career fairs. It can be anywhere from 7 to 10 companies, but in a sort of industry area. So you can see we've got a healthcare and life sciences one coming up, another startups one coming up, and a sustainability meetup coming up. So those are all opportunities, and there will be more, but this is what I know we have already on the schedule. So wanted to highlight some of those things. And that is the end of my presentation. Um, I also wanted to plug our Instagram, and this is my email if anyone wants to email me directly. I do recommend as a parent to follow us on Instagram. It's a great way to see some of the events in the moment because the students get so many emails. I also love for students to follow us on Instagram, but I do find that Instagram is an easy way to also, see some different events that are going on. And I am ready to head to the question phase, Stephen. Should I start from the top, or what do you think would work best here?
Yeah, so Dylan, our executive director of the Career Center, has been a rock star in answering a lot of the questions so far. Why don't you start with the one from Robert? Their student is a senior CSE major discouraged by the current job market. How can we as parents encourage them heading into the break without nagging? Is the first part. And then being realistic about the current market. What are thoughts on parents' roles in raising the possibility of a pivot with graduation looming? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So I get it. The news is not helping at all with the current state of the job market. I did at the beginning mention some research from NACE, which I thought was encouraging. And I do also understand the nagging tidbit is a challenge. And I struggle with it myself, so I get you, Robert. I think that having, an honest conversation with your student about what they're really interested in doing and, or for a CSE major, they could go into software development, obviously, but they could also take a look at hardware development, or they could take a look at these new generative AI analyst roles. They could go into data analysis or data science. So sometimes students get of a singular mind, like I'm a computer science major, so I must be a software engineer, and I must be a software engineer at a tech company. But sometimes I think it's helpful to think about other industries, broadening the scope a little bit, and thinking about industries that could be hiring, right? So maybe there's tons of startups that are currently hiring. And there's a lot of obviously AI companies that are coming out of nowhere right now and that are getting funding. So there are opportunities in different sectors. So even if their long-term goal is to work at Google and be a software engineer, which honestly, I had a student in here just the other week who's like, that's what I really want to do. And I think that's awesome because, having an idea of what you want to do is great. But I think students also have to have some realistic expectations of that might be your goal, but that might not be your first job out of college. Um, so what I do recommend is when you're talking to your student, maybe thinking about broadening the type of company they're looking at or broadening the job title that they're constantly searching for, and really leaning into the networking piece. I would say those are the three different things that I would recommend. Reaching out and having conversations with individuals who are doing the type of work they want to do or doing work that's kind of adjacent, right? So maybe they were thinking software engineer, but hardware engineer. Maybe having a conversation with some hardware engineers to understand what's it like for a day-to-day life over there. Still keeping in mind that sure, at some point you want to work at Google, down the road, but that might not be your very first job out of college. So maybe you take a few paths to get there. That doesn't mean that that's not still a great goal to keep in mind, but it might be not the first thing that you jump to right out of school. So that would be my recommendation to Robert.
Awesome. I know we wanted to try to avoid specifics just because that could lead to a ton of questions. But maybe you can touch on this specifically and then maybe on a broader scope. What are some current job opportunities that you might have seen for biochem majors or people in that health science world?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different opportunities depending what you're interested in. Biochemistry can go a lot of different ways. Obviously, here in the Career Center, we're most familiar with the healthcare and biotech realm. And we obviously have a huge pocket of biotech companies in the South San Francisco that are actively hiring. I would recommend that your student attend that healthcare and life sciences meetup that I mentioned, which is in February, I think. Um, so there's a lot of different career paths within there, within sort of working in a biotech. You can work in research. Obviously, you can go to grad school. You can also do, any kind of data analysis around biochemistry. So there's a lot of different opportunities. And that's why, again, I'll go back to the networking is really a great way for a student to have some questions, some conversations with alums who are doing different types of work to really understand what it's like on a day-to-day basis for them. And I think that can be really helpful for students who are sort of searching and are not quite sure.
So a lot of the folks on our call are a majority first year parents, parents of first years. So if a student has an undecided major or is still trying to figure out what their career path is, what advice do you have?
Yeah, so Focus 2, which I talked about at the very beginning, I highly recommend. That is the career assessment. And I've seen a lot of students take it and get a lot of interesting combinations of roles, but it really gets them thinking about what their strengths are. So again, that is a self-assessment. So it takes a look at their work interests, their skills, their values. It spits out job titles and the corresponding Santa Clara major. So I would definitely start there. And again, networking questions as well, those informational conversations, setting those up. Even, I mean, as simple as holiday gatherings that you're going to be going to. Um, Reaching, letting the students, introduce themselves to the neighbor. The neighbor's doing some kind of work. The neighbor knows someone that does something else. Those conversations, they seem small, but it really is impactful for students to broaden their network, have those conversations. And I think that the holidays are a perfect time to get out of the house and um, chat with people who are doing work in all different kinds of fields. It kind of opens up their scope of work or what they're thinking of, and as well just letting people know that they're looking. A lot of first years. It's more difficult to find an internship if you are in your first year of college because of a lot of employers want you to have taken certain classes, things like that. So a lot of times it's through those networking conversations that they're able to find, part-time internships, project work over the summer, just something that broadens the student mind on what roles are available out there and what their strengths are, what their values are, what they're interested in doing.
Great. Another tool that you mentioned early on in the conversation was JobScan and how students
Mhm.
can use it to tailor their resume. When you're
Yeah.
comparing that against something like ChatGPT or another AI tool, what differentiates JobScan?
Yeah, it's very similar. I would say that I love ChatGPT, and I do when I work with students, I do suggest that they use it for research. JobScan really focuses a little bit more on the keywords within a job description and the student's resume, combines the two. It gives them a score, and it also helps the student figure out where they could put the words. I think ChatGPT could also do that and take it up a level. I think future versions of ChatGPT are probably just going to get better and better at this and give JobScan a run for their money. But for now, I would say JobScan has a niche there where they can. You can also like track different jobs that you've looked at and things like that. So it has a few extra tools that I think are helpful, but it's very similar. I do love ChatGPT for research on interview questions. So if your student has a interview coming up, putting in the job description and their resume and asking ChatGPT what are the most common questions that will be asked based on this job description and your resume. Please provide the top 10 questions, something like that. I think it's super helpful for things like that.
All right, with that, if anyone wants to come off mute and ask a question, this is your time to do so. I do have a couple that will take us to the end of the conversation, at the end of the webinar, but if you do have any that are top of mind, please feel free to jump on in. Perfect. I had a feeling that would be the case. So here's a question I hear often. How early in the academic journey should students take steps towards career development or engage with the Career Center?
Yeah, that's a great question. We love to see students early and often. So there's no reason not to come right away. We're friendly. We don't bite over here. But I think what's key is having the student feel comfortable coming in and seeing us. We do host an open house during welcome weekend. And that's a nice time for a student to just be able to pop by and sort of see where we are. Um, at the very beginning, we can work with undeclared students. We can work with students who are undecided about their career path, taking a look at their Focus 2 results, taking a look at some of the things that they're thinking about. So it's really, there's no such thing as too early. But some students don't get to us until senior year. And that's fine as well. But our preference is that they would come in their first year.
Great. And then lastly, as far as internships, how early is too early to begin? We know we have some first years who are go-getters and want to start? Is that too early for them? And then how does that timeline shift as they navigate their college journey?
Yeah, so it's great to have some type of work experience after your first year, but that could be a job in customer service. That could be working at a retail shop. That could be working at a restaurant. It is great to have some type of customer service experience because, like I mentioned earlier, employers are really looking for great communication skills, critical thinking skills. And sometimes that comes, the best way to get that is from one of those sort of customer service jobs. When it comes to a more structured internship, it is tough for first years to find that, mostly because employers are just not that interested in hiring first years because they don't have, those real hard skills quite yet. But what I do recommend is thinking about startups, smaller companies, thinking about project-based work or part-time work. And so if you start leaning into some of those networking conversations in your first year, which I definitely recommend starting now, you can reach out to those people and ask, hey, so we had a great conversation. I really enjoyed learning about your career journey. Are there any small side projects that I might be able to help with this summer? I'm just looking for some project work to get a better understanding of what I want to do, to get some information on my resume. So I definitely highly recommend that students start with those networking conversations early and ask the question because if you don't ask the question about who do you know in your network that I can talk to? And do you know anyone that might be open to a part-time intern? If you don't ask those questions, students, aren't going to necessarily just see a first-year internship pop up on LinkedIn. So it's a little bit harder, but definitely your older self would appreciate you having those networking conversations often and early.
Awesome, Colleen. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And we'll wrap it up. Take care,
Awesome.
everyone. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Nice to meet you all.